Monday, everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges, and subscribe to us wherever you listen.
And if you like this show, give us that 5-star review. I promise it'll be worth it this time.
And as always, we talk judging in MMA, so head on over to abcboxing.com and read the scoring criteria. We're getting way too fast.
We are getting way too fast.
Wait, this is a show about judging criteria? Oh no, I'm so screwed.
Oh yeah, you're messed up. You're messed up. No, and that is the dulcet tones of Jay Pettry. Yes, we have a guest on this Monday edition of the Couchside Judges. Jay of Sherdog fame. Welcome to the Couchside Judges.
Fellas, I'm really happy to be here. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, I believe is the what the kids say these days.
No, they don't say that anymore. That's what they used to say.
Yeah. Hey, man, I did that in the Sherdog days, but that's a whole different story.
There you go.
I also, in addition to my editing job at Sherdog, I attended the ABC conference with these two fine gentlemen here. We learned a whole lot about judging and scoring, and I will let them break the news about the results of the tests instead of breaking it myself, because we all took the tests. On a final note, I'm kind of honored to be here on episode 199. You know, sometimes I'm a numbers guy, so we're like, ooh, 200 sexy. No. 199 is special to me because that's probably my favorite UFC card. 199, Rockhold Bisping #2, left hook Larry, all the magic that happened, Max Holloway pointing at the ground and Ricardo Lamas knowing what he was doing, all the magic that happened that night. So 199 is a good handsome number for me. So thank you guys for having me on here.
Well, what a nice positive spin on a number that I was going to completely write off. So good job. Good job by you, Jay.
What are you going to do?
And you know what? I think you did a good job of plugging everything, but I don't think you plugged everything, sir. You have a podcast as well.
No.
Why don't you throw out everything? Come on.
Okay, I'm plugging. I have a weekly show called The Living Death Show, obviously inspired by our favorite interaction by Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz with the chair slam and everything. I work for Sherdog in all capacities, and you can find my work all there. You can find me on Twitter at Jay Pettry, Jay Pettry, and that's all I have for you today.
That's Pettry with 2 T's, by the way.
Correctamundo.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the pterodactyl from that movie with the dinosaurs.
Scott's favorite movie.
I love all dinosaur movies, even the good ones and the not good ones, which mostly are not good ones. But that's okay. I like them anyway.
Guys, before we're
getting way off topic.
Yeah, but listen, it's officially August 1st, so do your thing, Scott.
Oh, sir.
Go ahead and do it.
What am I supposed to do?
Wish me a happy birthday.
Well, I thought there was some sort of noise I was supposed to make, like a pterodactyl noise.
No.
Yes, it is Dan's birthday.
Thank you.
Everybody out there, wish him a happy birthday. Jay, you want to sing?
I'm thinking about it. Hold on. Am I supposed to do that
That's only for Couchside Overrides.
Hey man, we got some of those coming. I'm hoping. I'm really crossing my fingers here. Happy birthday, Dan! Hell yeah, this is gonna be a great show.
Thank you.
It is, and as Jay alluded to, yes, the three of us alongside Aaron Bronstetter were the kind of the media contingent up at the ABC conference last weekend. We took the judging and the refereeing course, and yeah, I mean, might as well take the lid off it, right? All of us passed both courses.
Which is awesome.
It is. We didn't know that the last time we recorded, when we recorded our kind of recap show. So that is in the books. Our names are engraved forever on the internet at the ABC Boxing website as having passed. So there's that. Looks like most people passed, which was nice to see. Yeah, there's probably not much more really to add for it, right?
No.
It was a wonderful experience.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was listening to your talk about the ABC, the Overstuff show, and a lot of the points you hit on, I didn't want to take too much time of the show, but to also touch on like what Sal D'Amato said about positional control is not dominance. Some of the key points and takeaways that you guys had, they also hit me right here too. I'm pointing at my chest, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, this was a great experience. And here, guys, we're going to go just one hair off page. Did you guys watch these fights this weekend differently than you usually do after having the judging courses in your book? Because I did.
Slightly. I would say slightly, but I feel like that's almost always what happens because we have been privileged to have great conversations with lots of officials pretty much any time that we have a question, they've always been very, very accommodating and helpful and quick to answer us and all that jazz. And I feel like every time I have those conversations, it definitely alters the way I look at a fight, even mildly, moderately, what have you. Yeah, I would say probably here. Definitely, I'm trying to be more considerate of things like dominance, in terms of that kind of thing. Thinking about that kind of thing, but it didn't really come into play so much in these fights anyway. Yep. So yeah, I don't know. But it's good to hear that you certainly looked at it differently.
Yeah, just little bits. Anyways, lead on, sailors. Let's rock. What are we talking about today?
Well, Dan, what about you? I mean, did you kind of look at anything differently too?
A little bit. More so in the grappling realm, I think, than anything else.
Which I feel like we did, again, we did kind of a little less of, I think, in terms of, round valuations, right?
Right.
Well, you have practical recent experience of omoplata setup, so we got to see a few of those in practice, and I got to say, I liked yours better.
Thank you.
You know what? Hers were at least better attacks, though. I think there was a little more danger involved there from Julianna Pena. And speaking of, I think we should probably dive into these fights here, right? So
please.
Not as much about Pena, but more about the idea of Amanda Nunes. She's back on top, dominant fashion. Really, I mean, it was a competitive fight in the sense that you always felt like Pena really could still pull it off, but on the whole, this was most definitely a Nunes dominance. I mean, 50-45, 50-44, and 50-43 speaks to that to some degree, right? But the question I have for you, gentlemen, and we will start with our esteemed guest, Jay. What is your preferred next fight for Amanda Nunes? Now, that can be what you want for the division. It can be it's really just whatever you want to see next for Amanda Nunes. What is that?
So I couldn't go so far as to say a boxing match with Ronda Rousey, of course.
Please don't do that.
Well, no. When I see this fight, it's good the way you put that it was a competitive match and that Pena wasn't ever really out of the fight. She took some just absolutely terrifying damage, as we saw by her face afterwards. But it wasn't like one of those fights where it's a 50-45, you go, well, we know how this is going to play out for the rest of the fight, and there's nothing the other person can do about it. Pena was very dangerous in that regard. So what I want for Amanda Nunes, I'm an old school guy. I want the division to continue on. I don't care about the sexy, the flashy. I don't need the selling. I like the division to continue on. So when I look at what the bantamweight division is right now, women's bantamweight, of course, Nunes has beaten most of the contenders, and the other ones she hasn't beaten have probably lost one or two of their last fights. So then, of course, you have to go who's left. Caitlin Vieira, fresh face, beat Holly Holm recently. And is coming into her win before that was over Miesha Tate. That's okay. I like that. And it will be a good challenge because Vieira's strong. And I think it doesn't have to be the next. When people look at championship fights and the next fight, sometimes they go, oh, I want to see who could beat this person. I just want to see the next person because we don't know. We wrote Tyler Santos off completely. Or most of us did for Valentina Shevchenko. That was a fight. So yeah, I'm going with Caitlin Vieira. Am I crazy here? Am I on too far of a limb?
No, I think Caitlin's. If you're going in that direction, yeah, you got to go Vieira. She's next in line. If you don't do what I want to see.
What do you want to see?
I want to see Valentina or Pena trilogy. The thing I know, Pena got dominated. But like you said, she was really never out of it. There was moments where it's like, wow, is she really going to pull this off, make a comeback? And she did beat her the first time. So I don't know. I'd like to see that rubber match. Also, I think Valentina would be a good thing. Arguably, she won that second fight. First fight was only 3 rounds. So I'd like to see them do 5 more.
All right, so we have 3 names on the board. These really seem like the only names that actually make any sense in terms of women available and women in position to take these fights. So we've got Valentina Shevchenko, we've got Caitlin Vieira, and we've got Julianna Pena, right? I'll rank them in order of how I want. Number 3, Pena. Through 7 rounds, most of 7 rounds, we've seen Nunes be winning most of the time, except for, and I don't want to say fluke. I don't think that's fair. But round 2 of the first fight, it was unlike everything else. Like one of these things does not look like the other. You know what I mean? So I feel like what we have over the course of those two fights is a good picture of where Amanda Nunes skill-wise compared to Julianna Pena, and I just don't see that as reason to do the trilogy fight next. So I'm putting that third. Number 2, Kathleen Vieira. I'd be happy if that was. I think Jay is right. This is a perfectly reasonable challenger. Next challenger at bantamweight, probably the only woman. And he hit the nail on the head, more so than I think he meant to, when he said that she beat Holly Holm, because don't forget how many people didn't think she beat Holly Holm. She most definitely beat Holly Holm, especially if you go by the scoring criteria. I think that was actually a much clearer decision than some people really thought. I probably marinated on too much in the last couple of months. But number 1 for me is Valentina Shevchenko. I get it that Vieira is essentially the number 1 contender there, but let's be honest, if Valentina Shevchenko was still fighting at 35, she would be the perpetual number 1 contender at 135 pounds, unless she was the actual champion. And I think now there is a hunger for that fight once again. I think it's starting to reach a fever pitch. There is not a clear challenger at 125 pounds. There's not a must challenger at 135 pounds. So I think it's time. I think it's time for the trilogy fight between these two women. I think it will do a lot better than the second fight did, buy-wise, pay-per-view wise, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To me, I see that fight, and I'm starting to view it like Max Holloway, Volkanovski number 3. Because he won the first 2, but the second was Volkanovski won the first 2, but the second was close, and you can sell that to pitch a third fight. So when you look at women's 125, you see a lot of younger talent, but you go, I don't know if Manon Fior is ready for a title shot after, maybe one more win. And I don't hate it. I'm all right.
Well, that's my thing. I think we might have a challenger at 125 sooner than we think if Manon Fior beats Caitlin Chikagi.
Well, that would be that's September. Yeah. So, but I could kind of see a situation where we get maybe both Nunes and Shevchenko back on the calendar for, let's say, a December fight, or maybe even a November fight, maybe in Madison Square Garden. Those are the 2 final shows of the year. Obviously, the 2 big ones, they like to do one in Vegas. They do one at the Garden. They always load those up. So I imagine there could be room for one of them to get a second fight in this year. That's why I kind of see it lining up, and it would be very tough to say, hey, Manon Fior, why don't we just stick you in a title fight 3 months later? They could do it, and she'll do it if they ask her. But I think the better way to go about it is to create a big fight like that to the end of the year.
All right.
So that's where I'm at with that. But let's move on to, what about Julianna Pena here, right? She's not chopped liver or anything like that, right? She actually acquitted herself very well, even in defeat, as we spoke about. But what does this loss say about her, if it says anything, as a champion, of her time as champion, I should say? Dan, what do you think?
I think she stopped the GOAT. I mean, I can't knock her for that.
Sure.
It's like I don't want to compare her to Matt Serra, but it has Matt Serra GSP vibes a little bit, where Serra knocked out GSP and then just got destroyed in the rematch. Very similar there.
What do you think, Jay?
Like, she will always and forever will be a UFC champion. You know how people will talk about, oh man, if we fought 10 times, I would win 9 of them. Well, it's very possible this was the one of the 10 situations where Pena did the darn thing. But Dan's right. She dethroned the GOAT. Like, there's you can't look at this fight and other than going, with like a Tito Ortiz level fractured skull type of excuses, because I tell you, gentlemen, I didn't know until the broadcast yesterday that Amanda Nunes had given excuses about hurting my knee. I knew she had COVID, but I hadn't heard any of that beforehand, and it kind of soured me in the experience, because no, Julianna Pena beat her, took everything Nunes could throw at her, and dragged her into deep waters, blah, blah, all the cliches and expressions, and finished her by submission, exhaustion, and or rear naked choke. She won definitively. So that is a legacy thing that can never be taken away from her. So it is fair and not rude to put her in that Sarah GSP category, because she did it. She did it when the deck was stacked against her. I mean, we look at the line, and GSP was about a 1,000, 1,200 favorite if you're looking at the betting lines. Similar for Nunes, and you have a lot of parallels there. So I like the way that Dan framed that, because I think that makes sense, and it doesn't detract from what Pena does, because we look at Matt Serra, and you don't use the F word, the fluke word. Use Grispy if you got to use one, but you just kind of enjoy what she did there. and appreciate that she had her moment to shine. And I also look at it and go, yeah, if they rematched, if they made the third fight that Dan's looking for, I feel it would play out like that, only maybe a little less bloody, maybe a little more bloody. I'm not sure. I don't know. Scotty, what are you thinking?
You know, I have to say, I kind of framed this question in a way that was trying to set a trap for you guys, and you didn't fall for it. So good job, both of you. I think absolutely you have to give her credit for her time as champion. She got there. She did the damn thing, like you said. And it happened. You can't take that away. But it is what it is. It's kind of her time, and it was kind of this little blip, and now it's over, and I guess we kind of just move on, right? It's nobody really looks back to the Matt Serra era, you know? It was not really much of one, and I don't think anyone will say the same thing about, or people will think of the time that Pena was champion very similarly. So, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, you fellas. I think you did a good job navigating that question. Yeah. What do you got, Jay?
If I could, there is one thing I like to point this out sometimes. I like to harp on it on my own show. Actually, people probably get tired of me saying it. Former champions and those up in the top echelon of the division, especially former champions, usually get a shorter track to subsequent title shots. I mean, you can think of the champions that lost their titles and then were only 2 wins away from another crack at it. I think Pena established herself in this range because, again, like you said, Scott, she acquitted herself very well. That armbar she had in round 4, ooh, boy, oh boy, I think that could have finished a lot of people. I think were it not for the fact that her face was a crimson mask and it kind of dripped on the arm, you know, maybe we would have been looking at and still here. So yeah, I think this was a net positive for the UFC. And I think it worked out, I think, for everybody except for Julianna Pena.
There will come a time where Amanda Nunes is not fighting anymore. It's probably
and
much closer than any of us think. Yes, absolutely. And in that time, I bet you Julianna Pena is still around. And yeah, I think I could see it too. I mean, this definitely puts her in that conversation down the road, and it'll be an interesting division. But we're still not there yet. We're very much in the Lioness era, which is 6 years on. You know, with a blip in there, and it's back on and running. Maybe goodness, can you imagine if she won the belt at UFC 200 and then she defends at UFC 300?
As long as Jim Miller's on the card, I'm good.
Well, that's certainly our friend here, Dan,
For
right?
Sure.
Moving on to the flyweight interim title fight, Brandon Moreno. I think everybody was waiting for this to happen. I mean, not necessarily saying that Cara France couldn't win, but I think people were probably to some degree hoping to get that 4th fight because they've always enjoyed all of these fights. So this sets up the tetralogy, right? Are you excited for it, Dan?
Let's first off say, why you gotta say tetralogy?
Because that's the word for a 4th fight, sir.
It's quadrilogy.
No.
They're synonyms.
Incorrect.
They are synonyms.
Tetralogy.
They're synonyms. Gotta be so different.
I'm a writer. What do you want?
I had to look it up. Anyway, yes, I'm very excited for this. I loved it. Both fighters are great. I mean, from a fight where we shouldn't have seen even a rematch, now we're looking at a 4th fight between these two.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
What do you think, Mr. J? Are you excited as well?
You know, when a great fight or maybe a great rivalry happens, you can go, I could watch these guys fight every 3 months until they're bored and they have too much money on their hands. That, to me, I wasn't up for the automatic quadrilogy and or tetralogy. I was not looking at that and going, oh boy, I'd love to see them fight a 4th time, even though the 3rd fight between Figueiredo and Moreno was very close. I thought let's let it marinate. Let's let them grow and develop as fighters, because Brandon Moreno is the assassin baby. He's not the assassin man. He's 28 years young. He still might not even be in his prime yet. Let's let him build up to it.
Although if we let Figueiredo grow, he might grow into 35.
He might grow into 35, and hey, man, Moreno might too. He might get bigger. Crazy things happen. But I was thinking of this the whole time, and I was thinking this partly because of the friends we made at the ABC conference from a certain commission south of the border, discussing the options for how to pull off a big pay-per-view in, say, Mexico City, because that's the UFC's goal, is to get back down there. You got Brandon Moreno as the champion against trying to unify his belt, and then you can throw on all the other fighters. You got Rodriguez or Randy Aldana, like you know the names, and you can throw them on there. So this is a win-win for the UFC, and the fact that it's a thrilling fight between the best 2 guys in the division, you know, I can't be mad at it. I feel for Alexander Pantoja, because, you know, this is he might turn into the Leon Edwards of the division at this rate. But it's You can't go wrong when these two guys throw down because of how much fun we've had on all three of those fights. And I have to think at the end of at the end of all of it, this rivalry, all the matches they have should stand up among the best we've had. I have to think.
You know what I really liked about this, and this is kind of neither here nor there to what either of you was saying, but I loved how they wanted to do this stare down, right? And they wanted to have this little moment in the cage after the fight.
Beautiful.
And they got Figueiredo's coming into the cage, and he's looking all tough, looking all hard, and then all of a sudden Moreno's like, "Listen, I want to be respectful. I want to set a good example for my daughter. Let's just keep it respectful. I look forward to fighting you, but we want to be friends." And and then Figueiredo, because you're having a hard time reading him, and also there's the language barrier and everything like that, so you kind of wonder, what is he thinking? What's he gonna do? It's like he could go one way, he could go the heel way, or he could bury it and go the handshake way. And all of a sudden they give this weird handshake, and it's like, all right, I guess we're gonna be respectful.
I was thinking about this. Is his right hand the one that's injured?
I was thinking the same thing.
Actually, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. I'm the only one who didn't think of it, obviously.
Because if his hand is injured, yeah.
In that moment, Davis and Figueiredo's heart grew 3 sizes. Like this was the turnaround point for I forgive you for what you said, and I'm sorry for what I said. It's just the UFC probably was not happy about that because they love to be able to sell on controversy. But good guy pay-per-view, sign me all the way up. I'd rather have I'm not impressed with your performance than, living death. But that may be just me.
And that's weird because you named your show after one.
Hey, man, you got to love something sometimes.
My short answer is yes, I'm very excited for this fight. And one more before we kind of get into contested rounds. This is a little bit more of an officiating thing, so I think it's appropriate for us coming off of ABC referee training here. Derek Lewis, early stoppage, right stoppage, or close? Could have gone either way. Jay, what do you think?
My opinion actually changed. I could feel myself thinking this is how I would have thought, and then I took the stoppage into consideration of what Big Tan was saying, and I thought, okay, Derek Lewis got dropped to his knees, came backed up against the fence, hit, couldn't tell how many shots he was absorbing completely, and then fell down face forward, booped his face on the ground. That
Boop.
even if it was just a minor little thing and he sprang back up, that any form of face planting is okay, it's time to do something. So while June 2020 version of me would have been like, boo, I understand what Big Tan saw. And from the angle he saw on the replays, I go, ooh, but I like to judge and think of it without the luxury replays. So I'm straddling that fence, boys. So hit me with all you got.
So what you're saying is close.
It was. I'm more on the side of good than bad, but I think I see Dan is a little feeling something about this. Maybe I'm wrong here.
What do you think, Mr.
What are you thinking, Dan?
No, I'm on the same page here. I think it's a tough job. Obviously, we've seen Big Dan let fights like Pat Barry and Czech Congo.
He's let a lot of fights go that really ought not to have, including at the amateur level.
But the thing is, Derek Lewis does face plant. Fighter safety is the top priority of the referee,
as we were taught.
I think it's a fine stoppage. I have no issue with it.
My live reaction was that it was a good stoppage, that it felt fine. It felt fine to me. I mean, you can pick it apart all you want and replay is kind of like what Jay is alluding to, but on the whole, if you felt one way in the moment, that's all you have. You only have the moment to react. And I think the right thing was done here. One thing stuck out to me was what Joe Rogan said on the broadcast. He was kind of making a reference to Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard, letting the fight go.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Joe, those guys weighed 110 pounds less. What are you talking about? They don't hit as hard.
You could have stacked Frankie Edgar on top of Gray Maynard, and they would have weighed the same as Derek Lewis did.
Yeah, it would have been like the kids in the little rascals, and one sitting on the other's shoulders wearing a coat, right? I know Joe says some funny stuff, so I guess I kind of accept it to some degree. But also, I'm like, guy, they're not the same. This is not apples and apples. This is like apples and watermelons because one is bigger than the other, right? I think this was a fine stoppage. I didn't have a big problem with it. Again, you want to pick it apart later, fine, but that's not right. That's not how you can do it. So,
can I ask you guys a one word answer?
Yeah.
Will they run this fight back, Scott? Yes or no?
Hope not. I know that's two, but
I don't
Eh.
think so.
No.
No.
I'm hoping not. Just move on.
Yeah.
Just what needs to be
hope
proved? My question is, what needs to be proved by having them run it back again? I don't get it. Like, the guy was not winning that exchange to begin with,
No
so
way.
whatever. Moving on to contested rounds. We're gonna put Jay through the contested rounds, and we do have quite a few on this one because of the strange setup too. I feel like this is what led to part of this. Is there was a strange setup in the way the Texas Commission assigned the officials to this one. All of the prelims were local judges only. They brought in Sal D'Amato, they brought in Doug Crosby. They're only two traveling judges for this one, but they isolated them to the main card, doing the final 5 fights, and it was weird to see because I see different methodologies from the way Texas does their assignments, like all over the place. Sometimes they'll have referees that'll do both, referee and judge. We only had one of those in this case, and that was Jacob Montalvo, who, perfectly honest, I think is one of the better ones at being able to do both jobs ably at events. I think he has good experience with both. So to see that, him be the only one, no problem with it, truth be told, even at the UFC level. But when you stack just regional level judges on a UFC prelim card, I feel like it's just, it doesn't feel right for the UFC level. We've got sometimes some really high level fights on prelims here. It just doesn't seem like the type of thing you should be entrusting local judges for entirely. So that one struck me as a bit strange. I think in an ideal world, I liked what Ohio did earlier this year, where they had enough officials to do this. You put 2 traveling judges alongside a local judge. That way they get the experience, but also you're not relying on local judges to try and make the call on who wins a UFC level fight. I feel like we're playing with fire. But fortunately, I don't think we got a bad decision out of this anyway, right? Does anyone disagree? Or?
No, I think it's pretty good. So.
What do you think, Jeff?
We had a couple head scratchers for specific rounds, but I think that we
right
lucked out.
Won.
We lucked out.
That's the essence there. But let's start. Yeah. Let's start with the main card. I think we have 4 main card rounds that we're going to go over for both from the title fights, or 4 from the title fights. Excuse me. So these are the ones that I think people are going to be talking about most. They were the most visible. And let's start with Amanda Nunes over Julianna Pena. Like I said before, it was 50-45, 50-44, and 50-43. So we do have some 10-8 situations. Rounds 2 and 5 are what we're talking about. So, Dan, why don't you set up what happens in round 2, why we're talking about this as a potential 8?
Yeah, I'm going to set it up a little different than I typically do, just because it's kind of a weird situation that we found ourselves in.
Okay, sure.
So Nunes lands 2 solid rights, each drop Pena in the first half of the round. This round really ought to be a 10-8. When I scored it live, I only gave it 10-9. My reasoning was I didn't think Pena was all that hurt. Yes, she got dropped, but after the first one, she fires an instant up kick before Nunes tells her to get back up. The second one, she was lifted off her feet, completely depleted, but she's ready to go. She's arms and legs up, ready to defend. And the third time was a side left, and probably the worst visual as her legs were folded underneath her, but quickly ready to defend again.
It was a good left straight. It was a real hard one.
I also thought Pena did land some decent shots of her own in that round. Obviously not on the same level of Nunes, but clearly Nunes outclassed her opponent. The damage was very high. I just didn't think Nunes got the duration for the third D. Now, rewatching, having some time, realized this needs to be a 10-8. The damage and dominance were very high. Why should dominance really matter all that much? If she checked off, why should duration matter all that much? If she checked off duration, we may be debating 10-8 versus 10-7. And maybe she didn't even make it to the bell at that point.
I don't know
maybe
about
if she,
that. But...
if overwhelming damage, overwhelming dominance, overwhelming duration, we're looking at a debate over at least maybe a 10-7. Anyway, I was wrong. Sought out clarification. I'll be better going forward. So
yeah. I appreciated conversation with officials that we're fortunate to be able to have, setting us right on the idea that yes, okay, if damage is one of your 2 Ds, you're pretty much firing the 10-8 in the most of those situations. I'm sure there's extenuating circumstances because there's no kind of be all end all answer with that. But to know that if we get damage and we get dominance, or we get duration without dominance, or what have you, to pull the trigger there, because that was really the only thing that kept me from it. It was just thinking, okay, maybe there's the fact that she's not getting the good duration here, and she's being able to be let up, and it's kind of on the fence, and we don't go the other way. Now, I'll pull it with impunity. It's fine with me. So yeah, I changed my score from the 10-9 that I originally 10-9 that I'd officially assessed to a 10-8, and I feel pretty good about it. What about you, Jay?
I initially scored this just to let the listeners know. I write the official play-by-plays for Sherdog,
Yes.
for all UFC and major events, which means I am typing up the action blow by blow, live as it's happening, and publishing, and in between rounds, I'm filing and all these things like that. So I am, which by the way, this is something that was stressed during our judges training, is you have to have full devoted attention to what you're scoring to be able to properly score it.
And to
So
the
I know
idea that you're scoring and not just watching the fight.
exactly. And so since I'm reporting on the fight and I'm also scoring, and I realize I might be at a disadvantage, but I also am able to kind of keep track of momentum shifts, and I type very, very quickly, which I lucked out that way. I initially saw this as a 10-8 round when it happened, and I still believe that to be the case, because my impression of the 10-8 situation for the 3Ds of damage, duration, and dominance. Yes, two. If you have two of the three, it is a can be scored as a 10-8. Where if you have all three, it is shall be scored as a 10-8. But I also knew the interpretation of damage. Damage is king. If you are the one to inflict damage and you're also dominating your opponent, or if you're inflicting the damage from a great period of the round, it really leans closer to the 10-8 territory. That was my interpretation from the course. So I felt comfortable knowing that, Dan, you're right. Julianna Pena popped back up or was intelligently defending herself every time she hit the mat. She fell funny the third time when she got lanced and went kind of down like a sack of potatoes. Somehow she snapped right back into it and was able to compete. So you can look at that and go, oh, flash knockdowns, but that's 3 flash knockdowns in the span of a 3-minute window, and that check right hook could not miss. So I felt comfortable with that 10-8 round as the round I did score that for this fight. That 10-8 I gave out in this fight, if I'm spoiler alert right now.
Ooh, you're getting ahead of yourself, sir. We got to close off the button on round 2 by just
Please.
saying that it was Doug Crosby and Sal D'Amato, our 2 traveling judges coming into Texas. They were the ones who assessed a 10-8 here. It was not unanimous. It was the majority score. Jacob Montalvo, he assessed a 10-9 here. But, I mean, we did too, so who are we to judge, right?
Your judges.
Yeah, that's right.
Your ABC.
Literally, this whole
judges,
show
boys.
is about judging. It's even in the title. So what? I mean, God, who would listen to me? Who would listen to me? Let's move on to round 5, though, and I think this one probably a little more succinct of a discussion. I think on this one, right, Dan?
Yeah, it's obviously another good round for Nunes. Pena doesn't give up. She's throwing up omoplatas and triangles. Nothing coming that close. This is part of the fight where Nunes was comfortable playing with fire, as Scott was putting it while we were watching it together. Nunes has her down in the middle of the cage, landing some elbows, some pretty solid shots. The cuts on Pena's head are leaking like a faucet.
The holes in her head?
Nunes attacked the rear naked choke briefly, more like a neck crank at that point. Pena escaped. It's close. I think the blood may exaggerate things a little bit. I didn't see too much where Pena was hurt or rocked. I think the blood was from cuts of previous rounds. It's just bleeding because it's from the head.
Cumulative damage.
Yeah. It's a solid 10-9, I think, for Nunes.
I think so, too. I feel good about this being a 10-9 situation, the same as judges Montalvo and D'Amato. I had this written down in our notes incorrectly. It was Judge Crosby who gave this the 10-8. What about you, Jay? Did you go to the 8 or did you stick with us with the 9?
I couldn't pull the trigger for the 10-8 round because while I saw a fair amount of control and the damage that came from it, it just didn't. Nunes was sharpening her Ginsu elbows on Pena's face, and we talked about this in our course about cumulative damage. Potentially leading to scores in later rounds, adding to it. If she comes into the round with 2 cuts and then she now has 4 cuts and it is a horror movie, well, you might be more inclined to push it that way. But let me just also point out that cuts and abrasions to the head bleed like crazy. The one on the hairline was a not significant cut in terms of size or depth, but I assure you,
the ability to stop the fight in and of itself by limiting vision and that kind of thing. Yeah,
right. Right. The only one that was of that nature was opened up, like we're talking very close towards the end, and it was right smack in the center of her forehead, like she was growing unicorn horn out of there. It was a pretty wide one, but otherwise, it just wasn't quite enough for me to go. The damage was to the overwhelming or substantial degree that it was a 10-8.
Sure. I think we pretty much feel good about that one. So let's move on to the other title fight. That was Brandon Moreno getting the win over Kai Kara-France, like we mentioned. He won by a third round liver kick, yeah. And Jay and I heard the science behind liver kicks and how it essentially shuts down the body on a delay, hits that nerve, and then they kind of just crumple, and there's pretty much no coming back from it. So that realistically, you ever see a fighter go down with a shot like that, the referee's pretty much entitled to just jump in and be like, yeah, it's over right away. No need for follow-up shots. So that what I thought was a fascinating part of the conference, to hear the scientific explanation behind body shots, liver shots, shots to the solar plexus, all that kind of thing.
And hey, real quick, did anyone ever mention the Burgos knockout?
No, that didn't come up. Because that was kind of a weird situation. No, that didn't come up. Okay. I don't want to get off too up top because we don't have much. I just
thought of it right now.
Yeah. Right, Jay. Nothing was mentioned about the kind of the.
It was just one of those delayed reaction, but I don't believe so.
No. But anyway, so back to this fight though. We got to talk about both rounds before the third round finish. Which, by the way, I think we can all agree, Kara-France was certainly winning round 3 before he ate that liver shot and was over.
Oh yeah.
That was a good round for him, unfortunately. But round 1 and 2, again, we're split here. Dan, what's happening in round 1? Why are we split?
Early feeling out process. Both guys really only throwing low leg kicks, it seems, at this point. As the round progresses, Moreno lands a nice left hand. Still, only other strikes landing that stick out are low leg kicks, I think. Kai Kara-France lands a solid right hand, and Moreno shoots for a single immediately after it. No takedown, but on the separation, they resume to both still be fighting a bit cautiously. Moreno has a nice flurry of punches to the head, ended with a kick to the body. A rather low output round for what we're used to from these two, but I'm on Moreno 10-9.
Yeah, I also had it as a Moreno round, but I thought this was a pretty close round, man. I just did. I think because we're not having that high degree of stuff to score, it definitely helped play a part in that. But yeah, I think Moreno's probably the better score to give. If you're telling me I got to make a pick, and that's kind of how it works, right? So yeah, I went Moreno just like you. Jacob Montalvo, Sal D'Amato, they saw it that way. It was Doug Crosby saw it the other way. Where'd you end up landing on that one, Jay?
The couch is unanimous. I did score this fight for Moreno. Dan, you picked up on the flurry of punches that Moreno scored effectively in the end of the round. It was a very close. I view it as more of a how rounds progress, as more of like a metronome, as that kind of indicator goes left and right for how it scores. And I think just when we're talking about significant strikes landing. I mean, you don't count strikes, of course. That's ludicrous. But when you're kind of paying attention, going, I don't think a dozen strikes have landed. All it takes is 3 or 4 or 5, and then suddenly we're going all the other direction. But I will say, one of my colleagues at Sherdog did score for Kara-France, saying that the leg kicks, while continuous, were slightly effective, more effective in his eyes. Because the old adage of leg kicks don't finish fights is a misnomer, and we know that one. We know that Cecil Peoples was misquoted for that one.
Yeah, but at the same time, there was still even when he was misquoted, there was still the sentiment behind it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the sentiment was what really mattered most about that, was the fact that he was discounting the leg kicks.
Exactly.
And we've now seen for many, many years that realistically those leg kicks can win you fights. So, but that's neither here nor there, right? Yeah, I don't see it as crazy to go Kara-France here. I think a lot of people were starting to scratch their heads when they saw Kara-France got actually scores in both rounds from people. So I didn't think it was such a bad thing, to be honest. But round 2, I think this was an even closer round, Dan. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a closer round than the first. Both guys a bit more comfortable. Definitely a higher output round. Kara-France landed a couple nice low kicks. Moreno landed better to the head and to the body. Kara-France did land 2 decent strikes to the head as the round progressed. Towards the end, a nice left hook. A weird exchange occurred with Moreno throwing a head kick while Kara-France was throwing a leg kick, and down goes Moreno. Bounce right back up. Again, another final flurry from Moreno that ends with a pretty solid body kick, and that helped put it over for me to Moreno 10-9.
Yep, I'm right there with you. It's super close. I feel good about my 20-18 Moreno through 2 rounds score, but Yeah, I mean, I just don't have a problem with it going 20-18 for Car France either. And actually, Moreno was the minority score here. He was the outscore. It was Montalvo and Crosby who scored it for KKF, and D'Amato had it the same way Dan and I did. What about you, Jay? Where'd you go?
Well, I think it's interesting. I agree with you both, gentlemen. I scored it 10-9 Marino. I think it's an interesting debate, and it's something that happens all the time, is that there will be scores issued by media people, by people that are paying attention, and they'll give 2 rounds to somebody, but it's very close. And they will admit it's very close. Or somebody will say, yes, it was close, but I scored it the other way. Well, if they're close, that means both of them could theoretically go in one direction or the other. And yet there was a slight uproar about scoring 2 rounds for Car France versus scoring first 2 rounds for Brandon Moreno. And that surprised me because I did think that they were, I mean, they were, I would be comfortable with it with if somebody pitched it right. Okay, I can see how Car France had the upper hand. I mean, his leg kicks were starting to add up a little bit. Moreno was headhunting more often. And you could argue it be both ways, but yeah, I too had it 20-18 Brandon Moreno leading up into the 3rd round.
So if you and me, Dan, and even our guest Jay as well, had it the same way as Judge D'Amato, who was on his own, what does that mean for Sal?
Couch that over.
That was
I'm excited.
That was a good extended one, actually.
I like it.
Put some real extension on it, I suppose, right? So there's one for Sal. That's in the mail. Something's coming his way. No, it's not. It never does. Just the mail service is just not what it used to be. That's all I really mean. Moving on though to the prelims, because that was the end. And honestly, I think you guys, before we even tie that off, I just wanted to say I didn't think that we would talk about this fight so early up, because I try to structure kind of the order that we talk about these in terms of talking points, how much people are really talking about it, how much we really ought to address it, and what the value is of bringing that round down compared to others, right? And normally I wouldn't have put something like this so high up, even though it was a title fight, just because it was a reasonably close fight. But because so many people were in an uproar about it, I was like, well, I guess we got to put it a little higher, right? People are tuning in; they want to know what we're thinking about this one. So
it's definitely a pattern we see.
It is.
The closest rounds, the people are the most passionate about.
Ain't that the truth? But
passion. That's the word. Passion.
Yeah, passion's a kind way to put it. That's true. But that was the end of the kind of there was that split that I talked about, right? It was the main card had X judges, and then the prelims had X judges. We're all about the prelims the rest of the way, and we've got 6 rounds here from the prelims. You're going to hear a lot of judge names that we don't tend to talk about on this show because they don't get a whole lot of work. We haven't been to Dallas in a long time, not since this show began. So, and for those who aren't familiar, even though they've been to Texas a bunch, they've been to Houston a bunch, they were in Austin a few weeks ago, we do tend to get different judges in Texas based on where they are. Houston judges work Houston events. They don't travel on the whole to Dallas or San Antonio or what have you. They stick to that area. Same thing with the judges in the Dallas area. So these are newer names that we're not usually talking about. So as we get into Jocelyn Edwards' win over Ji-Young Kim, a split decision, which is, of course, couch side judges material always right away, 30-27, 29-28, and then 29-28 the other way. You know we got to talk about something here because we got 2 rounds up for it. Dan, start with round 1.
I just want to point out, Scott always has to remind me that we're a judging show.
We are.
And every week I complain about split rounds in fights that I don't have any interest in really to rewatch anyway, outside of watching live.
There's a lot of oh, you kidding me? We got to talk about this one.
I just don't want to talk about it's nothing against the scores. It's just I don't want to rewatch that fight.
So you're saying the prep work of Namajunas Esparza 2 is the highlight of your month?
Oh yeah.
We are probably the only people who rewatch that fight.
Can confirm.
All right, so back to Jocelyn Edwards.
Round 1. Start with that one.
Ji-Young Kim. This round feels like a sparring session, honestly. There's no real heavy impact for most of the round. Maybe in the final 30 seconds, they both throw and land some good punches. But other than that, it was Edwards landing teeps and body kicks with no real damaging intent behind them. And the inside kicks while Kim backed away and threw her strikes without much impact or success. I don't have much else to say. I think you got to go Edwards on this one. 10-9.
I thought it was a pretty solid Edwards round, to be perfectly frank. I think Kim is in the fight. She's certainly in there, and I don't think she's kind of disappeared off the map in this round. But realistically, this is Edwards' round, right? Am I wrong?
It feels like she won it on volume because there's really no strong immediate effect. It's just
from either one of them.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I mean,
right,
you can certainly win that way. That's a perfectly viable way to win a round, and I'm pretty sure she did that. I don't think and that's kind of what's almost a little more galling about a round like this, as opposed to a round where, say, there was like a big punch or a big strike that lands. Because look, we talked about this at training. We've talked about this on the show. If someone gets you an obstructed view, let's say a referee moves in front of the way, let's say, the two fighters are standing, right in front of each other, or maybe they're behind a post, or maybe the action happens as you're switching your view from looking in person to looking at your monitor in front of you. A whole lot of reasons you can miss one strike or the way it landed and that kind of thing, right? And that's why it's like, oh man, it's really like, man, they should know better. They saw that, obviously, but one strike can change it. Here, there really isn't that. It's just like death by 1,000 cuts. And I think it's really hard to miss so many of these cuts to think it goes one way instead of the other. That's why this seems like a really solid Edwards round to me, to be perfectly frank. I think Seth Fuller and Kent Basinger identified that. I think Judge Steve Armstrong don't really know what the deal was there. To be perfectly honest, it seemed like a very strange score to me. Am I wrong, Jay? Am I out of line?
No, you're not here. I felt comfortable assessing this 10-9 for Jocelyn Edwards, because even though, let's be clear, I in my play-by-play, I specifically at one point in the fight referred to her leg kicks as pitter patter, not to disrespect for her, but this was the intent to touch, to land. This wasn't a sit, put your hips into a kick or anything like that. The only noteworthy powerful, I guess I should use that word differently. The only noteworthy strike that really came to mind was when she jumped with like a switch kick and it struck Kim in the chest. To me, when there isn't an impactful blow, when the damage is not of any note in either direction, the volume, which was, to me, it felt 2-1, whether the stats lined up with that or not. It just felt like, well, that's obviously how it should turn out, because Kim wasn't firing back harder in this round.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment.
Yeah, I think we all pretty much agree here. This really ought to have been an Edwards round. This is it's not the strongest of scores. It really just I think Steve Armstrong got it wrong. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
I think he got it wrong. And unfortunately, we hate to say that, but realistically, it does happen. And when we do say that, it tends to be local officials, especially in Texas. But round 2, Dan, what is there? Do we think maybe there's kind of the same degree here, or what?
No, this round is a little different. Kim is fighting with more intent to do some harm, while Edwards still seems she's stuck in a sparring session. Kim's landing punches to the head, and some have some pretty good steam on them. Snap the head back, while Edwards just content to throw kicks up the middle. Like Jay said, these pitter-patter shots with just trying to touch into the legs. These are like half-speed strikes. No real intent to damage, just flicking it out there. I think you got to go Kim here. She's the one who's landing with immediate impact and being more effective. 10-9 Kim.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I first of all, I'd like to say, and don't yell at me for being nice here. I really do like I like your breakdowns, Dan, of being able to very succinctly, put what happened in this round because of 5 minutes of mayhem and or nonsense. So just good stuff, Dan.
This guy wants to be back on the show.
Anyway, enough of that silly nonsense. To me, I mean, what you said, the way that Kim changed her approach, and not only did she find her range, her volume increased double, in what you perceived it to be, and she started putting power behind the strikes. I started referring to them as haymakers instead of just hooks or kind of reaching strikes. It was a difference. You could hear the impact. You could hear it, and audible strikes don't mean everything. I mean, they do in some cases, like with the liver kick, you could hear one, oh no, but you could hear the strikes that Kim was landing, especially to the head, where they were doing work and Edwards was reacting. And to me, that was the damage factor that swayed me in Kim's favor, because Edwards couldn't get out of first gear in that round still. And she was still landing, but it wasn't ever dissuading Kim. Kim would walk through everything and throw hands at her.
Yeah, I I'm with you guys. I saw this as a Kim round. I thought this was at least reasonably close to the point where it's not that crazy to go in the direction of Edwards here, as Judge Fuller did. Am I wrong? Yeah, does this sound crazy to me, or for me to say that? Or
I felt a 30-27 score felt off-putting to me when that first when that first came out that that Fuller gave all 3 rounds to Edwards. I watched this fight and I think I don't know if Edwards won all 3 rounds. I mean, the second round to me was the closest.
That's kind of where I'm at. I feel like this is a
yeah.
much easier round to be split upon than the other two. I feel good about this being a Kim round, but I'm also, I was pretty harsh with Judge Armstrong in round 1 to give Kim. I just don't feel the same degree with Judge Fuller here and giving it Edwards' score. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think it's the worst. Dan, what do you think? Am I crazy?
Yeah, you're all right.
All right, cool. The only
you're pretty good, man.
The only other thing I want to point out before we tie this fight off too, I knew this was going to be a fight we'd talk about when I saw Jocelyn Edwards on here, and Dan seemed so surprised that we were gonna have to talk about it and so upset. But I'm like, dude, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to be a 3-round fight. I knew it was going to be a split decision. I knew we'd have to talk about 1 or 2 rounds.
I want to point out, I'm not upset that the judges had different scores. I was upset that I had to rewatch a fight I had no interest in.
I understand.
Beyond it live.
No. I get it.
I think it was our friend Adam Martin who I believe he wrote. He was either betting advice or something. He said this fight's going to go to a split decision. So hey, man, tip of the cap if that's the case.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen that.
No,
I am blocked.
Yeah, Adam Martin blocks him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. He doesn't listen to the show anyway. We can move on though. There's no more fights where we have multiple rounds. I think we already finished off the 3, so now we just got 1 round each from these final 4 fights here. We'll go to the heavyweights and it was Hamdi Abdul-Wahab got the win over Dontel Mays, split decision, all 29-28. So it was 2 one way, 1 on the other. Classic split decision. Round 3 was the split. Dan, what's happening here?
Yeah, interesting round. Mays lands a leg kick.
In what way?
I mean, because there's a split.
All right, I'll let you.
Because there's a split score.
Because they
see.
Somehow made it to the 3rd round without falling over.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate, but
Me and Scott I suggested heavyweight should fight 5 minutes and then go to the scorecards.
that's what I want. I very much want that. Unless it's decided, honestly, if you're in the rankings, if you're in like that upper level, I get it. That's okay. Like that's fine. But most of the time, you got 5 minutes to sort it out, and then we're moving on.
You want Mahat rules. You want them fighting blue jeans or something with hay bales around them. Then why don't you just go that way?
It doesn't need to be that. I just, it's more about my, the use of my time. Be economical.
Okay, fair enough.
That's all it is.
Those heavyweight fights are sprints. The rest can be marathons. I can dig it.
Yeah. I think we'd all win that way. But anyway, Dan, go into this one. I'm sorry.
Mays lands a leg kick, and then immediately Abdel-Wahab gets a waist lock, drags him down to the ground.
The whole wrestler thing.
DC loved this takedown. I loved this takedown too. I thought it was awesome takedown. Nice trip, good technique there. But we hang out on the ground for the next 4 minutes here, minus 1 quick stand up and a mat return from Abdel-Wahab. But in this, he's landing some punches and elbows. Nothing too hard, but I don't think these were pitter patter, especially the uppercuts where Mays is kind of got his back against the fence and he's sitting up, and Abdel-Wahab lands a couple. I think he will land 2 uppercuts and a solid left straight in this thing. I thought it was pretty solid strikes. Referee Kerry Hatley stands him up with 40 seconds left. And for about 20 seconds, they stare at each other. And then Mays presses forward, misses a few shots. Abdel-Wahab cracks him with 2 shots. Then as the round ends, Mays cracks him with 2 or 3 good shots. I think you got to go Abdel-Wahab. I don't think anything in that final 20 seconds that Mays did would steal a round here.
The only thing I would say about Abdel-Wahab's ground strikes that he's landing is I do think significant number of these are, in effect, busy strikes. I don't want to say pitter-patter, but they did get the feel of that. However, absolutely does land a few. Those uppercuts in particular, I think it was an elbow right. But it's really just a handful, I think, that kind of make the round for him. And it's really all he needed, more or less, because of the fact that Mays really doesn't do a whole lot. And Abdel-Wahab does stuff on the brief standing at the end, too. So, yeah, on the whole, it's really felt like a pretty decent Abdel-Wahab round for what kind of ended up being, I guess, low output striking-wise. it still felt like a pretty decent round for him. So I was a little surprised to, once I kind of focused in on this round, I didn't get to pay attention to this one live as close as I would like to. But watching it today, it felt like a pretty good Abdul Wahab round. Jay, do you agree?
I was very comfortable with a 10-9 Abdul Wahab in the third round, not just because of the sweet uppercuts or the fact that he hit the takedowns and landed them and nullified Mays, so he couldn't do anything to respond with. I didn't see the final sequence, the flying knee that missed by about a foot, and the obligatory rock'em sock'em moment that they had. I don't feel
slow motion too.
I don't feel it quote stole the round. There's different kinds of strikes on the ground. There's the pitter patter ones that you go, okay, that's you're punching the side. Yeah, that's going to do anything. You're just going to kind of whack it with the John Fitch 6-inch punch. That's nothing's going to happen there. And then there's the punch that, and then there's the punch that it's the keep the referee from standing me up punches, where they're more active. They have a little more oomph on them, just a little bit of mustard, but not enough to do any notable damage. But they're also going to make the referee go, well, he's working, then I guess, or she's working, I guess we'll keep going. And then there's the ones that Amanda Nunes was starting to rip towards it, when she rearranged Julianna Pena's face. So these were the activity strikes that, to me, there were plenty. There was a significant total, and that was more noteworthy than the final, the final countdown at the end, where it was an awkward brawl, and a lot of the strikes that sounded like Joe Rogan was freaking out about were missed. But it was, there were more O's than there were landed shots. It would be my interpretation of having seen that. But it was a 10-9 Abdul Wahab for him to get the decision in my eyes.
Yeah, this feels like a fight where if it was kind of anywhere else but Texas, we're having kind of unanimous 29-28 for Abdul Wahab, and it just that's where I look at this fight and I'm like, man, Seth Fuller, I just don't think got it right here. In a key third round, fortunately, he was the only one. We did have two other judges who I think saw it, we can call it the right way. Dan Matheson and Kent Basinger saw it that way, as we did for Abdul Wahab. Gave him the victory. Ultimately, didn't matter, but you hate to kind of see that one. So I don't think that was a great card from Fuller.
Yeah, this was one of the rounds, like when you asked Jay if we looked through these fights a little differently since last week after taking the judging course. This was one of the rounds where with the grappling, because I remember the one example they showed us, the one fighter had, kind of side saddle, like on the back, a little bit turtle. And he's like, yeah, the other guy's not actively trying to get up. So he's just holding position. This was where Mays actually wanted to get up, and Abdul Wahab, prevented that. He said, "No, you're not getting up." So I don't think it was just him holding position, but on the other hand, he was also not advancing position. So
right, or even landing, let's say, a high degree of damage either.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I think we can move on from that fight. We still got 3 more rounds to get through. Hopefully, we can fly through these a little quicker maybe than we've been doing. Drew Dober got the win over Rafael Alves. This is a solid fight with a body punch. Good knockout. Round 1 is split, though, and I think this raised a couple of eyebrows. Let's talk about this one, Dan.
Pretty entertaining round. Starts with Alves calling his own timeout, which we know fighters can't do.
No, they can do it because it happened. I just watched
it. They definitely can do it.
You're taught not to, but realistically, we see it in practice every week.
I still don't know what he had some weird tape on his toe or something. Whatever. On resume, Dober lands a nice head kick, partially blocked, followed by a solid straight to the face. Alves able to close the distance, gets kind of a strange takedown, almost like a trip kind of. On top, he's trying to attack a guillotine. There's really nothing there at all. Eventually, he does start landing some decent ground and pound. When he stands up, he lands a couple punches to the head. Then he lands these 2 really hard leg kicks, which I thought bothered Dober because after the second one, he just jumped up like, whoa. I really don't want that anymore. Where was I? Oh, there I am. Yeah. Alves connected a couple more times here and there, and then Dober started to stalk him, throwing against the cage, but missing a lot of these strikes that he was throwing. I do think Alves wins it. I can understand a judge thought Dober maybe landed more of these strikes, depending on their view. If they had a bad view of it, I can probably see the argument there, but I'm on 10-9 Alves.
Where do you sit, Jay?
This to me seemed like when there was a little bit of a dispute about that, it seemed to me like that Dober was able to sway a judge by his intense attempts to throw things.
We call that a Diego Sanchez.
That's the
I believe.
Diego Sanchez.
Yeah. His blitzes that don't have any appreciable impact, but darn if they look good. Or if they, he sprints in and throws 5 punches, every single one of them, Alves is able to shell up and block. But oh man, that was a cool looking thing. Or the spinning wheel kick. Now the spinning wheel kick kind of bumped off of Alves' shoulder right at the very end, but it's that kind of stay busy or look good, kind of like glamour muscles versus the fighter muscles. It was to me, it seemed like an Alves round, and not just because the striking was pretty close, and Alves had the takedown, and he was very actively attempting to pass guard. And I think I even addressed this in the play-by-play that he was very interested in position over submission. Like there were times he wasn't landing strikes because he was trying to pass guard, which, as we know, is a form of damage in our judging criteria. To a small degree. I felt comfortable with Alves winning that round 10-9.
Yeah, I did too. A little bit of a head scratcher that this one went the way of Dober, but I get what you're saying, Dan, but realistically, a judge ought to be saying, "Oh, I think it." If you look for the reactions to how it landed and that kind of thing. We had a lot of stuff happen in the round that went one way. Yeah. It's kind of tougher to see it that way, the same way as Adam Menard did. I see it much easier the way of Steve Armstrong and Dan Matheson. I think they were on point to give this one to Alves, and yeah, I think we're all unanimous here to different degrees. Maybe I'm the one who's the most critical out of you three. I don't know, but that's where we're at. We can move on though because we do 2 more. Michael Morales got the win in round 3 over Adam Fugit via round, like I said, round 3 TKO. Dan, you keep wanting to say his name a different way. We're not going to do that. This is a family show. And round 1.
Forget about it.
What is happening? Yeah, kind of like that, but not exactly. Different way. Round 1 is the round we're split on here. Why are we split, sir?
Yeah, first minute and a half, Morales lands a solid jab and then spends that time blocking kicks from Fugit reluctantly. Then they both start to find a little success. Morales lands a heavy right that snaps the head way back, followed by a jab. Fugit. Fugit. Oh, man, I'm going to struggle with this. He's able to get a clinch.
Call him Adam.
That's right. Adam's able to clinch, gets a takedown, lands a couple punches, but, nothing too big. Gets caught with a couple up kicks. I thought one seemed to at least off-balance Adam. From here, he's in the guard, which we know is a neutral position. Nobody's really doing much here.
Top control from guard is not actual real top control. No one's in control.
All it is just a takedown to get it there, and then everything else is neutral. Booyah.
Ignore control there. It's just top.
Yes. Morales, he elevates him and uses it to stand back up. And here's where I see it pretty clearly. The impact on the strikes for Morales is just better. Really clean and heavy shots, snapping the head back. Fugit lands some here and there that are pretty decent. It's just not the same class of impact. Round ends with Fugit wobbled by a jab. I'm on 10-9 Morales here.
I'm also on 10-9 Morales, but I will say, watching it again today, I felt it felt like a much closer round than I think when I was watching it, and I can totally understand why Morales was actually the outscore. To score for him was split from the majority. Dan Matheson and Seth Frollo, they had it for Fugit. And it was Adam Menard who saw it the same way as you and I, Dan. But yeah, I do think the impact is really what wins out here. I think there's a difference in the degree to which Fugit is affecting his opponent with the strikes landing compared to vice versa. So yeah, I like Morales here, but no, I'm not really upset about this one being split in any way. I think this is just a kind of a classic round. That's like, yeah, this is a close round. It's a competitive round. You could see it maybe a little bit differently, and maybe even allow for the fact that a Judge Cade side might be seeing or feeling different impact off of these strikes, right?
Yeah, well, when I watched when I rewatched it, I felt I was just reaffirmed in my initial assessment.
You got anything to add to that, Jay?
Not really. I think what really did sway it for me the first time I saw it, when I scored it for Morales, was you could tell the reaction when Fugit, when Adam was taking the strikes. You could see he was getting knocked back a step. There was a right hand that Morales landed. I think it was like just a straight right down the pipe that immediately started some swelling around Fugit's right left eye. There we go. And you could see that there were just certain moments where you'd see Adam start blinking it out. And it was those kinds of little moments where like, okay, I can see that Morales' strikes are doing the big difference. And I kind of looked at this and I wondered if there was that relative expectation that, we expect it, that Adam's going to get wiped, he's going to get iced, so it's competitive, so maybe we're thinking about scoring it for him, kind of like how when Jennifer Maia was competitive against Valentina Shevchenko, we went, we got something here, when in fact it was a 49-46. So I don't wonder if that was part of that for the judges to see and go, oh, wow, I thought this undefeated kid was going to just burn through him, but he didn't until later.
Nonetheless, we end up all on the same page with Judge Menard, who was on his own. So, Dan, what do we call that for Judge Menard, who's on his own?
Couch side override. 2 for the night.
Oosh.
We will see if Judge Menard gets something in the mail. He might. He just might. Last round, gents, and it is Alex Morono. What? Sir.
Oh, I was hoping it was going to be a Blood Diamond fight, so then I could say, no, his name is Mike. Carry on.
Negatory. We are on Alex Morono.
Someone did say that. I said, can we just call him Mike from now on?
No. His name's Blood. His name's Diamond. Blood Diamond. We're not on that one, though. We're on Alex Morono. Got the win over Matthew Semmelsberger. Unanimous decision. It was 29-28 twice and a 30-27. We're only talking about round 3. So what we're saying is the fight was already more or less decided coming into this, with Morono pretty much just needing to ride out 5 minutes. What happens in these 5 minutes that we're talking about this as a split round, sir?
Yeah, as you said, Semmelsberger clearly down, needs a finish, comes out like a house on fire, drops Morono with a jumping knee, ends up in a scramble, and during the scramble, Semmelsberger lands a nice throw, puts him back on the ground, ends up in guard with Morono. Morono's trying to get the rubber guard. Semmelsberger picks him up, slams him back down to the ground. Eventually back up on the feet. Not too much ground and pound happened or anything all that effective happened while on the ground, I'll point out. Back on the feet, Semmelsberger lands another jumping knee in a clinch situation, and Morono stumbles forward, just kind of holding on a little bit. It looked a little strange. The rest of, at least the next minute or maybe minute and a half, Morono is walking a little stiff, but he keeps pumping his jab out, and he's landing it pretty good. But a lot of the other shots that are being thrown are blocked. Semi landing some leg kicks and body front kicks. You can tell he's quite tired. As the round goes on, Morono appears to be getting some good lands in there, and then Semi lands a nice big left. Morono cracks him with a right to the jaw, then an overhand right that he probably couldn't see because his eye was
jacked up.
Terrible looking. If a judge didn't see Semmelsberger land that knee,
early knee,
and thought maybe he just tripped, I could probably understand why you would score for Morono, because I do think in that second part of the round after that, Morono really did land probably, or at least it's arguable that he landed better for that part of the round. So I could see it. But I'm on Semmelsberger. I thought that knee was big damage. 10-9 Semmelsberger.
That's really the only reason that I could kind of see it. And it's conceivable. Absolutely. You can't discount that. But realistically, I think you would even agree, Dan, that the right answer to this one, with all the facts in front of you, really ought to be Semmelsberger winning this round. But yeah, that is a viable consideration. You know, that like I said before, when I was talking about Edwards, and it was kind of like there was no one strike. It really ought to be that way for her, because of the fact that it was kind of 1,000 cuts. We had just had a bunch of things, you know, weighing on one side as opposed to just one thing that could have been missed. This is different. This one, it makes a little more sense. I still think that Kent Basinger doesn't really have a strong leg to stand on, other than saying he missed that for some reason or another. But I feel much better giving the round to Semmelsberger with Seth Fuller and Steve Armstrong. Am I wrong here, Jay? Are we wrong?
On one of the judging courses, we talked about how it's enough damage, especially early in the round, will sway it to one side so far that a fighter will have to come back really notably in the rest of the round to be able to make up for that. And when Semi the Jedi knocked him down with a knee in early on in the round, I thought, okay, that's massive. That's significant for him, because of the fact that he can't see. You know, I'm surprised this fight kept going, guys. Just I want to just say there that whatever the doctor saw, man, good good for you, Cut Man.
Was it Rogan who suggested that maybe he guessed that it was one finger?
Oh man,
and we got the Anik laugh out of it.
It's very possible that it was just kind of a roll the dice kind of thing, because Semi was in it to try and get it back, and he did more damaging blows in the first period of the fight to get it back. And I don't think that Morono, I don't know. If the judge admits he didn't see the knockdown, that's a hard thing to say, because that's the most significant strike or move of the fight. Unless the 1% obstructed view.
I think what Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, I think what Dan is trying to say, that if you didn't know how the knockdown occurred,
if you saw like the legs were tied up and they kind of fell over,
maybe jumps and lands, that's where it could be. If you don't see the strike land, you can't assume what happened.
That's right.
A lot of things. Yeah. And I think that's what you mean, right?
Yeah,
right,
I know he knows. I'm not saying that the judge didn't see him throw the knee. I'm saying
no, I got you.
He thought he jumped and maybe they just slipped on there and didn't see how it landed, that it actually knocked him down.
Just clarifying for our listeners, especially.
Yeah, sure. Although I will admit one last thing. I thought that Morono's mouthpiece was the one that was knocked out of the mouth.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes. Yeah, we need to... Did we talk about this in full, Dan?
We could talk about... Yeah, Jay, do you remember the referee course about the mouthpiece?
Yeah, you're not supposed to stop and look for it and go hunting for, looking on the ground searching for it. That's a very clear thing. You're supposed to be eyes on the fight.
But more than that, what are you supposed to do once the mouthpiece is acquired?
Wait until there's a lull in the action and then replace it.
But how is that mouthpiece replaced? Do you put it as the referee into the mouth?
That's a great point. It's funny you say that.
That was on the test.
It's so funny you say that, because I even wrote down the play-by-play. Mergliata, Big Tan was the one who replaced his mouthpiece in his mouth. That's a don't get in there.
That's against protocol. That's against protocol. Not supposed to do that.
You're not following proto, buddy. You're done.
I like that you call him Big Tan. That's a good one.
Oh yeah,
I call him Tan Dan.
All right, that's not bad.
A lot of people call him Big Dan, but I do Tan Dan, and you go Big Tan. No, that's interesting.
It's Big Tan, because Big John and Big Tan. No, Big John and Big Dan. No, Big Tan.
That's why I like Tan Dan.
That's not bad either.
Yeah. But anyway, no matter what you call him, maybe we're not supposed to put the mouthpiece in on your own, huh? You could get bit. A lot of things go wrong. Don't do that. But
it's gross.
But the fact of the matter is that this round really ought to be scored as a Semmelsberger round. It was not unanimous. We are talking about it for that. But to kind of recap, because that is the last round, and normally we don't recap off of these things, but I just thought it was fascinating because out of the 6 rounds we talked about from the prelims, there were 5 local judges used. We mentioned every one of them as the out judge except for Dan Matheson, and I think each one of them ended up being on the wrong end of a score where we said the wrong score was assessed rather than, you can kind of see it either way, right? And we do see in certain circumstances why it could have gone that way or another, but nonetheless, 4 out of 5 local judges gave a round out where we're like, that's not really the right one. I just think that speaks to the fact that maybe we do need to be including more traveling judges when we come to Texas than we do, and that is unfortunate.
I also saw a very interesting phenomenon. I think it was actually MMA Decisions that pointed this out, that of all the media scorecards for the fights that went the distance, I believe there was one scorecard of all of them that disagreed with the result of even a round score. I believe it was the Dontel Mays fight. I believe one media scorecard went for Mays. I think all of the rest of the media scorecards were unanimous for whatever we had all chosen, which is fascinating.
It's rare. I feel like it doesn't necessarily mean anything though, because
of course
and
not.
as much as like I'm part of MMA media and I'm trying not to be elitist about this, but realistically a lot of MMA media just doesn't know what the judges are really evaluating. They haven't talked to judges, they haven't taken the courses, they go by what they think they know. And I would say I just hope you take the course like we all did on this episode of the podcast here. I hope you do. There's a lot of people who honestly already know. I mean, I have a high degree of respect for pretty much anybody we've had on the show. I mean, a lot of them have shown some real acumen in describing the way rounds are scored. I think a recent example, of course, being Matthew Wells. I like when he contributes to the kind of the judging recap piece that they do at MMA Junkie. I think he is definitely the sharpest as far as scoring wise on that panel they use. But yeah, no matter who you are, I just encourage everybody to take the course as we did.
Yeah, Jay, I hope Felder addresses your question that you asked him.
Me too. I'm glad you saw that. Me too.
What question is that?
Felder is doing a little Q&A type of thing where he and Michael Chiesa are going to answer questions. And I said that a few of the media attended the referee and judges course. That'd be something you, Paul Felder, and Chiesa would attend? Would that be something you'd do? Because
I hope he takes it. Dean Thomas, I think.
I mentioned that Dean was in it. Dean had taken the judging course too. So yeah, I mean, Sanko and Dean, hopefully they're leading the way.
Well, Laura Sanko is not just past the course; she is a licensed judge in Missouri now. So I'm gonna give a real clap here.
Yeah,
for Laura Sanko. I think she deserves that because that is impressive to get all the way to that level, to not only take the course but also be a licensed judge. Doubt she's probably going to be judging because she has other ways to make money, and there's that whole code of conduct thing, and it gets complicated. But anyway, bravo to her. I'm very excited for the day that comes along where she is actually placed on a proper UFC broadcast in the color commentary spot. I think she'll do a bang up job. Yes, it can't do soon.
Very soon.
Can't happen soon enough. But that is it for the rounds. 7 finishes on this one. As much as we talked about all these rounds, there were a bunch of finishes here. 6 by TKO or KO, 1 by sub, and 2 of the fights ended in the first round. Of those finishes, sir, and we'll start with Jay, what was your favorite?
I can't get enough of a good body shot. And we had multiple just chef's kiss body shots. But the one I want to talk about very briefly is the one that was set up multiple times through the first and second rounds by Drew Dober, where he would go right to the head, left to the body. He had just a little rhythm. He would set it up and it was working and you could see it. I think it was the second round where Alves flinched a little bit and I thought, he's onto something here. And it was just the way that in the third round, early in the third round, Alves kind of faked the left and Dober slipped it. And just a short, straight jackhammer like a piston left to the liver. And it just absolutely short-circuited Alves. And it was just magnificent. And I Drew Dober, I appreciate you and your chin and your liver shot because that was a thing of beauty. It's interesting that Drew Dober is a knockout away from the lightweight knockout record already. And I wouldn't have thought that. It is held by Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Like he tied Melvin Gillard, which we know is the knockout guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Drew Dober is sneaking up the records there. So that's mine.
It kind of tripped me out when they said that he was at about his 9-year mark with the UFC. I'm like, is it really? But I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I guess it really is. But I mean, good for him. Good shout.
33. Anyways, carry on.
That's a good shout. I like that one. I also like a good body shot KO. So I went with Mr. Interim Flyweight Champion Brandon Moreno. Shut down Kai Kara France to the body in round 3, and he was losing that round, like we mentioned before. I just think that was really impressive because we were really starting to see at least some momentum shifting, and I'm like, oh man, maybe Kara France is going to start taking control here, and then boom, all of a sudden it's over. Yeah. Wow, really great knockout, really great way to put a stamp on it, and of course set up that tetralogy, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Dan, what was your favorite finish, Dan?
Pantoja. Just neck cranking the hell out of Perez. Grabbed
Perez,
the back, locked in the body triangle, standing, and just went to work cranking. He was either going to break the jaw or break his neck, and Perez tapped out before that happened.
It's a real shame that Pantoja is kind of in that Leon Edwards spot, like Jay mentioned earlier, because Pantoja realistically ought to be getting a title fight at some point. He almost seems like the Jussier Formiga. The newest Jussier Formiga for flyweight, because he was somebody who realistically ought to have deserved a title shot on merit. He just never quite got the fight, and now he's gone. So I hope that's not the case with Pantoja. He's too talented. He is.
The way Pantoja came out of right at the beginning of the fight with that look in his eyes. Ooh, you got some old school vibes right there. I don't want to say his name, but I'm going to say his name. You know when Chuck had that look in his eye? I saw just
we're going there.
When Pantoja came down and was ready to just throw down, I thought, ooh, we got something special here. And we did.
Did the room get cold as ice, man?
A face crank.
Yeah, it was It was a brutal sub.
He definitely had more fire in him than normal for Pantoja. But you know what? Let's close the book on Dallas. Let's close the book on UFC 277, and let us look ahead briefly before we close down here. UFC Vegas 59. I couldn't come up with a number, so initially I wrote Vegas something or other. It is number 59 on Saturday. And headline back, I like this fight. I really actually like this headliner a lot. Thiago Santos against Jamal Hill, 205 pounds. I am literally always interested in a Jamal Hill fight. I think he has been fascinating to me since the moment he stepped into the UFC after winning on the Contender Series. I've been curious about his progress. I think he's on a championship track. Will he win the belt? That's up to him, but I see great things for him, so I'm interested in this fight in particular. What do you think? Are you guys up for this one too? This to get your blood pumping?
Yeah, for sure. Jamal Hill has a chance here to make a statement, enter the top 5 if he wins impressively, which he tends to do. I could see him in the top 5 after this fight if he wins. So
I mean, shoot, if he beats Thiago Santos and he looks impressive, he wouldn't be next in line or anything like that, but I imagine he could be placed in some sort of, title eliminator fight, maybe against someone like Magomed Ankalaev, because now we're getting backed up a little bit now. We've got the Glover Teixeira fight. It sounds like is going to happen against the champion Yuri Prohaska, and then we've got Jan Blachowicz in there. So yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of things they can do. 205 is getting interesting again. What do you think, Jay?
This is a real pivotal moment for Thiago Santos here. I mean, he's lost 4 or 5, and he hasn't had that spark that we loved about him. Maheta, he has his walkout, his song as the hammer of the city of gods around the world. This is a guy who had all of that, everything behind him, and the frightening power, and he hasn't been pulling the trigger, and that just hurts my heart. Well, Jamal Hill is going to force a fight, and he's going to be in his face, and Santos is maybe, if we're lucky, going to throw some hands back at him. If we're lucky, I think it'll be a very exciting, violent collision, and yeah, it'll tell us something, because it'll tell us if Jamal Hill is ready to get to that top 5, or it'll tell us if Thiago Santos still has if he's going to serve as that top 5, I don't want to say gatekeeper, because that sounds rude, but hey, man, when the shoe fits, he'll be knocking down contenders for a while. So yeah, that could be real violent, and I like that about main events, when you go, I see what you did here. I see what the matchmakers are hoping for.
This is what I like about fight night main events. This is kind of what I'm looking for. I mean, we've had a mixed bag over the last couple of years, especially the ones that have been at the Apex and not pay-per-views. So yeah, this one I'm very happy about. It's good to see, and it's also going to be good to see Nevada judges back there. We'll have mostly traveling judges and the ones that work exclusively out of Las Vegas. It's going to be a lot easier, I think, to trust these judges coming in initially. Depending on how someone feels about certain judges that people like to complain about every week, but I still don't think is very justified. What else are you guys looking forward to seeing? Is there a fight that you're looking forward to, Mr. Pettry?
There is a fight I'm looking forward to, and I think it's an awkward fight that doesn't make sense until you really think about what the UFC is trying here. And you're going to go down the prelims for a while. You're going to go down to a welterweight fight between Jason, which is also a vanilla gorilla variety, which we have a few of the UFC, versus Dana White's Contender Series 2021 signee, Josh Quinlan, who I liked when he was coming up to the LFA ranks, with some real fast power, but staying power in fights. Jason Witt, I don't mean this with any disrespect whatsoever, but he's kind of a face-first brawler. Like, this is a guy who's going to knock you out. He might get knocked out too, and that's okay, because he isn't really that effective on the feet, but he still kind of leads with it. He'd rather choke you out in some fashion. And Josh Quinlan's going to go at you. Now, Josh Quinlan tested positive for steroids for standalone this past year, and actually had his win overturned to a no contest, and the UFC kept him. How sporting of him. And they're going to give him a guy who might throw down with him. So this is a tailor-made matchup for Quinlan, and it could go very strange if a guy that was used to steroids is no longer on them. So this is a fun, interesting thing that's low, and this way I won't steal the ones that you guys are thinking of that are higher up.
Yeah, it's funny. There was one that I thought ought to be a little higher, just because I think they like this guy a lot, but maybe it was the matchup they felt the need to put it on the prelims or something like that. Terrence McKinney. Oh God, get out of here. Terrence McKinney is someone who I think is really going places at lightweight. So he's coming off of the loss to Drew Dober in that epic first round war that they had, and still ranks among the round of the year contenders, I think. Not sure where it sits now, because we've got that's a kind of stacked category right now.
I mean, Schnell Sumaderji.
Some damn good fights, realistically. But yeah, McKinney coming in here. He's got Eric Gonzalez, the Ghost Pepper, right? Is that his name? Yeah. So I thought.
So he's spicy.
I don't love the matchup here, just because I think there is a certain degree of throwing Eric Gonzalez to the wolves here.
Yes, that's a good point.
And I don't love that from a matchmaking standpoint, but I really can't not be interested in a Terrence McKinney fight, because, again, I really do see this as a guy who's got a very bright future at 155 pounds. So I'm interested in that one. Dan, I mean, I know you're definitely interested in another one I might mention, so I'll let you say it.
You know what? You say it, because I'm more interested in where we're going after this.
Oh, okay, because I'm definitely not interested in that. What do you want to say,
the People's Main Event?
The People's Main Event is being Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal?
Yes,
yeah, 170 pounds. I like this fight. How do you not like a Vicente Luque fight?
Right.
I think him and Jeff Neal could definitely make some fireworks here, but I still feel like the People's Main Event almost seems unfair here, just because I think Santos versus Hill is a legit fight. A legit fight that people would even be excited about. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. Nonetheless, either way, top two fights on this card. Because this is the co-main at 170 pounds. I really like both of this. This is a decent main card for a fight night. I'm pretty happy. You're going to say the fights that I'm not even interested in, I pretty much put on just because we kind of have to talk about it, sir. So you lead the way. Dan.
Stan making a real tough call here.
The tough finales.
I'm
invested in the show. I watched all the episodes, so I got to see how it ends. I'm excited for it. First one, the heavyweight finale, Zach Pauga versus Muhammad Usman. I'm not totally sold on Usman yet. I don't think he looked all that great on the show. I think Pauga was the better fighter from what I did see. But also, I think Mo's at Fortis MMA now. Is that correct?
Jay, do you
know? Anyone know?
I know he was at Fruvasport, but I think he might.
He's not at Sanford with Kamaru, right?
No.
So yeah, I think maybe having his normal
Kamaru's
team,
barely at Sanford.
his team, maybe this brings out something different. But I'm going to pick Pauga on this one to win. And then the women's fight, women's flyweight, Julianna Miller. She's just tries to finish you from the bell. It's just, she's super entertaining, super scrappy. I'm excited for that one.
Against Brogan Walker. What do I need to know about Brogan Walker? Because I didn't watch the show. I actually don't know anything about. I did interview Muhammad Usman last year, so I know a little bit about him. But honestly, most of these guys are just kind of strangers to me.
Brogan Walker's an Invicta
guys
vet.
and gals. Okay.
Julianna Miller's only 2-1 as a pro.
Okay.
But she did make it to the finals.
It's Invicta on Invicta violence right here. That's for sure.
There you go. Anything else we need to touch upon, boys? I think this is a pretty stock full show. I think we covered a lot, and I hope, Jay, that you had a really nice time talking about all these rounds with us. We're hyper nerdy. We've got the Criterion nerd shirt on Dan over there to be talking about all this. But yeah, I think it's enjoyable to go in, and hopefully you had a good time.
Yes, I did. The only thing I left to say is that Sam Alvey is going to win this weekend and get 8 more fights in the UFC. Otherwise, this has been a great experience. I appreciate you guys having me here. Had a lot of fun.
He's got children. We don't wish that type of brain damage upon him, do we? Do we really want that?
He smiles through it, though.
Yeah, I guess
that's
so.
right.
Well, I think it's before we even do our little closing here, Jay. Anything else you want to shout out? Projects? Anything you're working on?
Yeah,
cool stuff. What do you got?
The only thing I want to shout out is shouting out to our colleagues in the media. If you want to improve your education in the sport to the next level, go take a judge and referee course with the ABC, or I guess the command course, or Herb Dean's referee course, or whatever legitimate sanctioned courses are out there. It'll change the way you look at the sport in a good way, and there's nothing wrong with more education. So I can't recommend it enough.
And incidentally, they will be in Texas soon doing a judging
Austin.
course. So yeah. So
and they will be in Vegas
area?
in next year, and I'll probably be in attendance. And it sounds like a certain gentleman here will probably be out that way too.
Oh yes, I enjoy that city very much.
It may not be me. We'll have to see. A lot can change in a year, but I have to figure things out.
And that does it for this episode of the Couchside Judges. Thanks again to Sherdog's Jay Pettry for joining us. We'll be back again on Tuesday. I will be away this weekend coming up to break down UFC Vegas 59.
Tuesday for 200 episodes. What are we going to do to celebrate? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
We'll break down some fights.
Maybe I'll have some cake too while I do it. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody.